here at CUPRAP with Liz Gross.
Here we are.
CEO, founder of Campus Sonar. But you introduce yourself. Tell us what you do,
All right.
a bit about the company.
Who knows what I do? So I am the Chief Executive Officer of Campus Sonar. I provide strategic vision for the company, oversee my leadership team, and do whatever needs doing at that point in time. Currently, that means I do a lot of business development, helping us develop relationships with new clients, and also really important that we have a clear point of view in the marketplace about what we're learning from industry research and our clients. So I do a lot of things like this to share that.
Fantastic. And we're at the final day at CUPRAP. You've been to a few sessions. What are some of the takeaways, or what have you learned at the conference?
I'm really pleased with the fact that I feel like I fit into a theme at CUPRAP. One of the themes that I've been hearing the last 2 days is differentiation, the need for campuses, both from an experience perspective and from a brand perspective, to be truly differentiated. I also think I'm starting to see, at least on the stage, and I hope also in the chairs watching, people realize that we need to have a hard look at the way we've been doing essentially everything in the academy, and think about how our organizations are built, how they're marketed, how we're staffed, how we pay our staff, all of those things. It is a tumultuous time in higher ed, and that has been pretty clear here. But I feel like at least some people are running towards it, not away from it now.
Yeah, it was interesting. Like Jeff Salingo's keynote, he spoke about marketing having that seat at the cabinet level and starting to influence the product service. But it was alluding to all that change that's going on, and even that's a change. Have you seen that with your clients or universities that you work with, and that marketing's now being leaned on in that?
Yeah,
that way?
One of our clients is very fond of repeating and amplifying the concept that I think came from Terry Flannery's book, How to Market a University, of treating the brand as an asset and helping the cabinet and the president understand what it means to value that asset, to nurture that asset, to assess that asset. And that means that brand and marketing information has to be considered at the cabinet level, and not just, did I see the billboard or did I see the Facebook ad, but what is the impact we are having aligned with our strategic goals. So that perspective I am really fond of. But on the flip side, there's some really great research out there from the firm RHB right now, where they looked at all of these, like 100 and some strategic plans in higher education. And when marketing shows up in a strategic plan right now, it is showing up as a promotional tool, and that is it. Yeah. So we're not quite at the point where strategic plans are positioning marketing as either the brand as an asset or product development or whatever that might be. So I think we still got room to go in the cabinet.
Yeah, no, I think so too. And I think it was interesting. I went to your presentation and you mentioned user-centered design. And Jeff Salingo, he mentioned it as well, or things that he spoke about: data, user information, research. That user design, when you're designing a product, is invaluable. So getting marketing at that cabinet level is...
It's not just what new degree should we start, it's what does a degree look like, or does it need to be a degree, or how do people take courses? And I have a front row seat for it at my home because my husband is in a non-traditional program that doesn't follow a typical semester framework, and it's user-centered for the adult student. And there's a lot of different ways to be user-centered, but if we're not talking about it, we're not talking about institutions that are going to persevere.
Yeah. So one of the things in your presentation that you kind of were passionate about was the content race.
Yes.
And it kind of struck a note in the room. People were like, oh...
If I didn't make anyone mad, I didn't do my job.
There you go. What are we racing? What is the content race, or how do you view it?
So I want to make sure that I am displaying a high degree of empathy for everyone who sits in the social media manager chair and is asked to create content constantly. But it has gotten to the point where the phrase content is king, which is not wrong, has been misconstrued into we are better at social media if we create more and more content that hits the metrics that the social media platform is telling us to hit. And what we are seeing at Campus Sonar in social listening data is that, particularly for institutions of under 10,000 students, more content gets you essentially nothing other than more time spent creating content. And where institutions of that size could be differentiating is in one-to-one engagements with students, whether that is online, offline, whatever that might be. So the platforms where you're renting space, you don't own the space at all, are demanding content from you. And all I want to ask is the question, to what end?
Yeah.
What have we gotten from filling the content machine for years and years and years in terms of institutional outcomes?
Do you think the institutions, I feel that the institutions are awash with content though. They just generate content in every, like, left, right and centre, and it's almost the governance and how you bring that in and pick that and what you amplify.
Right. Make sure that the content is reaching the people who are then going to be displaying the behaviors and doing the things that you want the institution to do, not doing it because a social media algorithm demands it, or the campus down the street has found success doing it in one way. The race to be good at social through content has just resulted in a lot of people doing the same thing, and that's the opposite of differentiation.
Yeah. It's funny, like a lot of commercial clients that we work with, they'll have a formula, like 11-4-1, where it's like 11 tweets that are just retweets or engagement for content, and then one CTA or whatever it is. And I think, and I might have got it wrong, in your presentation, you were talking about engagement, which is the hard part of social media, I feel, because all of a sudden you've got to be a personality, you've got to put yourself out there.
Yep.
There's this thing, you might fail, you might not hit the note, and some institutions, I think, step back from that because I think it is the hard part of social media. Mm-hmm. It's also a hard part to govern as well, because I think if you set up with your content calendar, everyone's approving it, if you're getting a social media manager to actually engage with people and reply to people, and it's got to be real time, like how would you advise somebody to then go, okay, we're going to take that step and get into engagement and do that one-to-one?
Yeah, that's actually I just helped us produce a training series at Campus Sonar where we talk about the 5 policies and procedures that I think every social media manager should have. And one of them is the rules of engagement. So when will you engage? How will you engage? Under which situations will you not engage? What is your goal with engaging? All of that should be thought through ahead of time so that you're not just responding willy-nilly whenever. Also, of course, there has to be this really high level of trust between whoever would be the content approver and the person who is doing the engaging, so that they don't have to get approval before they do things. And then just really confidence in who the brand is and what the voice is and what that means. And I come at this from personal experience. I think I've told a lot of people, but the last social media manager job that I had was speaking on behalf of a student loan servicer. And you are never, it is unlikely that you're going to have a more potentially disgruntled audience than a federal student loan servicer. And I engaged constantly, but I had the rules. I knew what the outcome was supposed to be. And I engaged with people who were just throwing insults at us. But 9 times out of 10, the engagement turned into a quality outcome, whether that was trust for us or actually logging into the account to see who the heck we were, or if they had a complaint, being able to fix the complaint or explain why we couldn't. So I understand that it's like really scary to jump in and do it, but I've done it and I survived.
It is. It's almost like that thing you've just got to go out and fail 50 times and hear no. Like, start doing it and you build that confidence up.
Yeah, and not every time went well. Some of my attempts at engagement back then literally were written up in industry blogs, and back when the Huffington Post was a thing, in the Huffington Post as like examples of things gone wrong. And I lived to tell the tale, and I didn't get fired.
Yeah. That's great. So, Campus Sonar then, tell me about the journey. Like, you're the CEO and founder.
Yes. The journey, open-ended question. It feels like it's been a decade, but it's less than 5 years.
Okay.
We started as an idea that we wanted to be a strategic partner with institutions to help them leap a lot of the hurdles that were in their way to becoming audience-centric on a base of online social intelligence. Yeah. In those 5 years, we have, I've probably worked with almost 24 employees at this point, because not everyone stays everywhere forever. We have cycled through how we want to offer products, what we want that to look like. We have launched industry research. We've worked with almost 100 campuses on the way, and I think now we're really settling into everything we do is based on social listening research, but the campuses that we're working with now understand that social media is more than a checkbox, and it is a strong component of brand strategy or content strategy or enrollment management strategy, crisis issue management strategy. So we end up spending a lot of time talking through how to solve problems and how to address issues with our clients, with social as the foundation of what we are looking at. So that's been a huge journey, because I used to speak only about social media in my day-to-day conversations and at conferences for years, really. And that was because we knew we were doing something that didn't have a lot of traction or understanding yet. And now we've moved on to the what problems is it solving and how is that looking for folks. And if you start something from scratch, the day that you can put true end-to-end case studies on your website of people who are willing to say, I did it and it worked, is wonderful. And I have to say, at CUPRAP, I don't know if he's going to want a name-by-name shout-out on this, so I will let this person remain nameless unless they want to throw their name out onto the internet later. One of our clients is here, and I can't tell you how many people have come up to me and said, I heard you're working with so-and-so, and what they've told us is that working with you is like adding someone to their team who just knows what needs to be done, and like that's validation. So
Cool.
I'm excited that that's where we're at. We still have so far to go.
So that's the thing. I mean, you're a thought leader in the higher ed industry. You're known in social, but you're also running a business.
Yeah.
And how is that shaped up to what you thought it was going to be? Like, you've started with an idea. Had you run a business before?
No.
Okay.
I didn't realize I was starting a business when I started the business.
Okay. Has that met your expectations? What are some of the things, the challenges that you didn't expect? And how have you grown in that?
No one's asked me this question yet, Kevin. I love
There you go.
getting a new question. Learning to run a business has been the hardest thing I've done so far. The one thing I have going for me is that from the beginning, Campus Sonar had a parent company who was investing in us. Yeah. So at least I didn't have the how am I going to pay my rent moment, or how are my employees going to pay their rent. But even beyond that, it's, am I doing this right? Am I treating people well? Yeah. Do I understand the finance? Because not only have I not run a business, I don't have an MBA. I don't have any formal business training.
Okay.
And I would say, particularly in the last 2.5, 3 years, I've really leaned into, like, what does it mean to be a CEO? How do I want to grow this business? What do I want us to stand for? And a couple of things I've learned. One, you can't do it alone, ever. Right before we started recording, I was telling you that I've worked with multiple professional coaches so far. Yeah. Like, literally in the year of 2022, I've worked with 3 coaches already on different things.
Okay.
I have an executive leadership coach who I'm currently on hiatus with, so that I could work with 2 other coaches. One is a cultural competency and diversity coach, and the other is a growth coach who's helping me on the sales side of things. And having those external perspectives and being able to be vulnerable with those people has helped me figure out who I am as a leader and as an executive so much faster.
What's your process then when you're looking for a coach? Do you look for, like, okay, I need help in this area with the business? Do you recognize it, or is it driven by business needs?
Every time I've been involved in coaching in the last 2 years, it's been driven by what goals I want to achieve and what sort of, like, background and perspective I think would be helpful in reaching those goals. But more often than not, the coach knows your context and your industry and, like, general leadership development, but they don't have any of the answers for you. They're just reflecting back at you the questions and what you want to learn it yourself, and they force you to think. So it is worth paying good money to think about things to reach outcomes. But last year, my coaching was very much focused on relations with my board of directors, business plans, those sorts of things, and made a lot of progress. And this year it's focused on how do I operationalize equity and cultural competency in an organization that has a bunch of other priorities as well, but it's one that I'm not going to let linger, or not going to let die. And it's not just how often do we host a training or whatever that is. How do we change our hiring processes? How do we change our culture, our expectations? And you have to be forced to think about those things and ask yourself really hard questions, and coaching's helped me do that.
That's great. Everyone sees the Liz Gross presenter, storyteller,
Uh-huh.
lighting up the room, but in the business there's failure. How have you dealt with that, the resilience that it needs? Because that's probably the face that people don't see.
Yeah, unless they're working in Campus Sonar.
Okay.
Because there's a lot of transparency within our organization.
Okay.
So when something doesn't work or we're going to change something, that's usually known to employees, but it is not often published to the world, right? This is kind of a buzz phrase, but I haven't been saying it. I've noticed the employees saying it, so then I have to embrace it because they're using it. It's just the idea of fail forward. Like, if you're failing, but you learned something from it, then it is really helpful. We have spent so much time designing services that we decided not to offer anymore. And putting together outreach strategies that we decided weren't aligned with our values, or hiring folks that we thought were going to be like super long-term employees, and then finding out for whatever reason their journey was going to look different. And some of those are surprises, some of those are failures, some of those are learning moments. I really embrace this idea of a learning organization that recognizes that not only is every mistake an opportunity to learn, but who you are as an individual today and as an organization today is not who you were yesterday, and it's not who you're going to be tomorrow. So you just have to expect it to change and roll with it and hope it's going in the direction you intended it to be.
I almost think the word failure, it's the wrong word. It's like, the saying like success is only a series of failure. There is a lot, but failure feels too harsh. It is just those learning moments and those changes.
And I think a lot of it comes down to people aren't, maybe they're not as afraid to fail as they're afraid of not getting the approval of whoever it is that they're seeking approval from. And that is something I've learned a bunch as a business leader that I had to uncover through coaching, right? There were a lot of folks I was seeking approval from who I didn't need approval from. And when I finally let that go and was just willing to do what I believed was right or what the data showed was right, it was a lot less stressful. And it was easier to learn through failure than to.
That's great. So Campus Sonar then, you've got Stream, you're growing. What's the product, service? What's the direction for the next year, 2, 3 years?
Right. I can actually answer that question like succinctly now.
There you go.
Which
Back to
maybe
questions that
I wouldn't have been able to do a year and a half ago. So we basically operate two sides of the business. The services side, which is what we've been doing since day one, is when we work one-on-one with a campus, ideally through a partnership of a year or more, where we are providing the social listening expertise, the social listening software, as well as the analysis and strategic guidance to get that data, make it mean something, and get folks into action. So that is a strategic partnership, and that can take a variety of different ways. Every single one is customized. Stream is sort of that open entry access point for everybody, because the partnership's not going to fit in everyone's budget. Stream is that industry level research where we're listening to audiences that we know everyone cares about, or topics that everyone cares about, creating original research, thought leadership behind that, how-tos behind that, and a community to connect with people that care about it together. So Stream is like the price of signing up for a conference, but you get the access for the whole year and the community for the whole year, and our partnerships are individual campuses long-term.
Fantastic. Looking forward to it. We'll be looking at Stream and getting involved. Thanks for being at CUPRAP. Thanks for being on the podcast with us.
Thanks to Volt for being here.
Not at all.
It's been so long, I think maybe ever, since I did a podcast interview in front of a microphone.
I know.
And not a computer screen.
I know. Thanks for being here. Thanks. Liz.